Hello, my name is Dr. Jacqueline, and I'm with DTP-Leadership Group. This is Hot Topic Bold Talk. My podcast 98 is entitled Kamala Harris Shines, a dominating victory over Trump in the presidential debate. Now, I want to start this way. I've done a comprehensive review of the debate that left Trump on the defensive. To get a real grasp of what happened in the political debate, I've reviewed 50 articles. Now, that is the reason that my friends say they're glad to listen to my podcast, since I take multiple references and choose the clearest ideas possible to present to you, my listeners. The presidential debate is best introduced by titles from articles that I'm not going to cover in detail, since there are other articles that I can give the detail that I think you might find helpful. Here are 10 titles to give you a sense of the comments made about the debate. Conversations on September 11th by Rodney Coates and Lee Banville, entitled, "The American People Want Better," with the additional comments, starting with a handshake. Presidential debate began between Harris and Trump, then turns fierce and pointed. On the very opening of the presidential debate, Kamala Harris made clear her vision of a more just society, while at the same time directly challenging Donald Trump's controversial view on abortion and immigration in the U.S. legal system. The Atlantic on September 10th by David Fromm, "How Harris Roped a Dope. She stayed human when Trump went feral." Hemmed, harried, and humiliated, Trump lost his footing and his grip. Almost from the start, Harris was in control. It matters that Trump so objectively lost to a competitor for whom he could not utter a syllable of respect. Forbes Daily on September 11th. Following a strong performance Tuesday night, Harris vaulted past Trump to become the bookmakers' favorite to win the election. According to the election betting odds trackers, bookmakers now believe Harris has a 51.8% chance of winning, a jump of more than 4 points in 24 hours. From Time on September 11th has a very detailed document that you may want to read. It's by Brian Bennett, Eric Lisa, and Philip Elliott. It's entitled "How Kamala Harris Knocked Trump Off Course: The Biggest Moments from the First Debate." The Washington Post, September 11th, by Jennifer Rubin. "Harris excels, ABC does its job. Both were deadly for Trump." The presidential debate revealed dramatic contrasts between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Vice President Kamala Harris demonstrated on Tuesday night's presidential debate, in case any rational person had doubts, that she is the only decent, prepared, and fit candidate in the presidential race. In both her answers and demeanor, she demonstrated the unmistakable contrast between a mature, responsible adult and someone who resembled the mean, crazy relative no one wants to sit next to at the holiday table. The Atlantic, September 11th, by Peter Weiner. Kamala Harris broke Donald Trump. In their first face-to-face meeting, the Democratic nominee humiliated the former president. Donald Trump is so feral and narcissistic, so unrestrained, and so outside the norm of American politics that he's difficult to debate. But on a Tuesday night in Philadelphia, Kamala Harris cracked the code. She took Trump apart without losing her composure. She appealed to unity, inviting Americans to turn the page on a man who belittles the country and seeks to keep it in constant state of agitation and chaos. And she returned time and again to the argument that Trump cares only for himself, whereas during her career, she had only one client, the people. And in the Washington CNN, a publication by Daniel Dale entitled Fact Check, Trump falsely claims every poll says he won the debate. Former President Donald Trump has returned to a time-honored tradition of his, citing junk online polls to claim he was the clear winner of a presidential debate that the scientific polls find he lost. Facts, CNN poll conducted by SSRS with 605 registered voters who said they watched. 63% said Harris did a better job in the debate. 37% said Trump did a better job. And the YouGov poll, which had 2,166 registered voters who said they had watched, 54% said Harris won the debate, 31% said Trump won, 14 were unsure. Now they give other polls in this particular article. The Washington Post on September 12th by Paul Kane was entitled Congressional Republicans Try to Hide from Trump's Debate Performance. They're not showing the same clear-eyed analysis from Democrats after Biden's terrible June 27th debate. The New York Times on September 11th by Jonathan Swan, Shane Goldmacher, and Maggie Herberman. Trump says he had a great debate. His allies probably say otherwise. Donald J. Trump's aggressive spinning of his debate performance suggests he knew it was optimal and left aides considering how to move ahead with 8 weeks to go. As we all know, he's refusing to debate Kamala Harris again. The conversations Wednesday on September 11th, we got what people wanted, Harris or Trump. From her confident stride across the stage to shake former President Donald Trump's hand to her closing statements, Vice President Kamala Harris dominated last night's primetime debate. She challenged Trump's facts, needled him on his record, and altogether demonstrated mastery and skill. Again, mastery and skill. Now, I want to go to another something that happened this week to show how hateful Trump is and how his party is. Kamala Harris, in a place many of us love, is cooking for families and friends when she does on Sundays. She enjoys cooking. Bill Penzies, owner of Penzies Spices, has a thoughtful experience to share with all of us when Kamala Harris came to his Penzies store in Pittsburgh. Here are Bill's comments in his Saturday, September 14th newsletter entitled, The Hug Heard Round the World. Trump says, terrible overpriced product. Fox says, the meanest spice shop in America. They want to make us pay for welcoming Kamala Harris last week and for being the perfect place for her to showcase her humility and humanity. The hug heard around the world. 1 week ago today, Vice President Kamala Harris visited our Pittsburgh store. There's a good chance you've seen a video of her visit. If you did not, then he can easily provide it to you. Her and her interactions with our customers really was nothing short of awesome. At first, there was the coverage of her visit, then the right-wing backlash, then the cover of the backlash. But then came Penzies popping up on international news sites and people emailing appreciation from around the world. Clearly, the humanity of the vice president's visit struck a chord everywhere. I've been around the world a bunch and understand news isn't stopped by borders, but this was something different. People everywhere were moved by her visit to our Pittsburgh store last Saturday. That's no small thing. And we can all imagine a group of people in a different country all watching the coverage on their own media. But I really liked how this email from Thursday made it all so personal, even if it did make me blush, as Bill says. Hey, Bill, I'm on a short vacation in Helsinki, and the video of Kamala Harris shopping is everywhere here. One of my Uber drivers asked if it was a setup. I told him that the Secret Service probably gave prior notice she wanted to come to set up securities for the event. But the customers, I don't know. And this man goes on. He says, Miss Harris is a cook and she enjoys Penzies and has fabulous spices. And I was a customer myself, he says. One reason I was not only the quality, but because of your philosophy and that you put it out there for all to know. I don't go anywhere else for spices. And who could argue with a man that reminds us in every purchase to be kind and to not forget to vote? I like this man, said the driver to me. So do I. A customer. Bill goes on to say, thanks for the kindness, that this came just as the right-wing world was at the peak of sending me all their anger and made it all the better. All I would add is that they didn't call to say she was coming. They called to ask if it was all right with us if she did. And those sure looked like our customers to me. That's it all ended up with people around the world liking America a chunk more, really, is something. Life is good. But nonetheless, Trump, Fox, and the right-wing world are trying to drive us out of business. They want to make an example of us. This really could cost us 10, 20, 30% of our sales and muffle us at the very time I believe our voice needs to be heard and is valuable. Or all of you could open up your wallets to buy a bunch of $50 gift cards for $35 and share them with your friends. If your wallet isn't that deep, sharing even a couple of half-price orange slices helps. He says, I picked seasoned salt, bold taco, and the revolution for the ad because each is universally loved and makes a great gift. Donald Trump is trying to drive us out of business because we welcomed Kamala Harris into our Pittsburgh store where she hugged one of our customers. Please send us your money. I hate to have to ask, but if we are not to be hobbled by this, I kind of need to. Thanks for saving us, and don't forget to vote. Bill. Now, if you want to write Bill Penzies and support him, because he is fabulous, it's a Bill at Penzies, PENZEY.com. And I think you will, I think you will find his newsletters really enjoyable, and his spices are outstanding. My spouse and read Bill's newsletter every day. He's been recognized by some of the finest media for how he runs his stores and his willingness to be an activist for democracy for years. Yes, he's a supporter of Kamala Harris and tells the truth about Trump and his party. every. How Kamala Harris turned the tables and captured the nation's attention. I have many other articles to share with you, so my next podcast will continue on the debate and more about Kamala Harris and the comparison between her and Trump. I do want to share one article with you to end this first podcast on the presidential debate. It is from the New York Times and it was published on the 11th. And it was written by Shane Goldmacher and Katie Rogers. It's entitled, Harris Dominates as Trump Gets Defensive, 6 Takeaways from the Debate. This article begins with these statements, laying out bait that Donald Trump eagerly snatched. The vice president owned much of the night, keeping him on the back foot and avoiding sustained attention on vulnerabilities. Kamala Harris commanded the first debate against Donald Trump, flashing her prosecutorial skills to leverage every chance to get under the former president's skin. In a 90-minute clash of vision and style, they disagreed fiercely on abortion and the economy, immigration, and the war in Ukraine. But throughout the night, Mr. Trump found himself in a defensive crouch, relitigating his record rather than picking apart Kamala Harris. The contrast was apparent even on mute. She smiled, she glowed, she spoke more, but she dictated the terms of the evening. Here are 6 takeaways from a debate that was a remarkable reversal from June, when Democrats were so despondent they changed candidates afterwards. Miss Harris strode across the room to deliver the first handshake in a presidential debate since 2016. This is the first time she met Mr. Trump in person, and she was intent on introducing her. Kamala Harris, she said, as he took her hand. Have fun, he instructed her. She sure appeared to. He did not. Miss Harris dominated the proceedings from nearly the start. She laid bait. He took it. She began with her needling. Mr. Trump that his board's supporters had been leaving his rallies. He continued with her comment that he had inherited riches from his father. And on it went as she invoked his Republican critics, including those who served in his administration. On the back foot, Mr. Trump repeatedly spun down rhetorical cul-de-sacs. At one point, Ms. Harris invited viewers to watch a Trump rally for a more unfiltered view of the former president. You will not hear him talk about your needs, she said. He responds not by talking about voters' needs, but about crowd numbers. One of Trump's dreadful examples is immigrants are eating pets in an Ohio city, which led to fact-checking pushback from David Muir, one of the ABC News moderators. The worst thing is Trump's comments have led to a violence in that city, and they had to close the schools and other locations to protect Haitians and others from violent actions. This is a perfect example of how his hateful comments incite violence that we've been living with since he came onto the political scene. Aren't you tired of this? The rest of the article goes on. Trump played defense on his record. In the first 5 minutes, Ms. Harris looked into the camera and told viewers what to expect from Mr. Trump. The same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. He indeed talked less about what he would do in his second term and spent more time trying to clarify his record. He defended his handling of the pandemic, his decisions to fire his top military advisors, which is not true, since they resigned since they didn't want to work for him, and even his 7-year-old response to the deadly far-right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Miss Harris forced Mr. Trump to defend his closeness to authoritarians like Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary and his past courtship of Vladimir Putin of Russia, a dictator who would eat your lunch, she said. Ms. Harris looked straight into the camera. She pitched herself as the candidate of the future and forced him to defend the violence on January 6th of 2020. We don't have to go back, she said. Let's not go back. On abortion, which was one of the biggest missed opportunities for President Biden in his first debate, it was one of Miss Harris's strongest moments in hers. Mr. Trump, 78, sounded his age as he tried to articulate his position in vitro fertilization. Read the article, see how he stumbled. It's very obvious, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. Miss Harris, 59, had laced into Mr. Trump. She called his position on abortion insulting to the women of America and said she had met women across the country whose health and lives have been endangered by abortion restrictions. I think it's very sad. Pro-life people have no understanding about women's health and well-being. And they have no clue about how the restriction on abortion has impacted many women's lives. And I remember I had the podcast about Arkansas in the previous podcast. This article goes on. Trump didn't hide his disdain of Harris. For much of the debate, Ms. Harris expressed her feelings about Mr. Trump by letting her body language do the talking, putting her hand on her chin, laughing, and forming her lips with a puzzled look. Ms. Harris, laughing at Donald Trump, saw him as a disgrace. And when he referred to the 2020 election loss as the moment he was fired by 81 million people, he grew visibly angry. She went on to address his criminal conviction and he fumbled completely when he was asked a question about his past comments about her racial identity. She called his use of race was an attempt to divide America, and she called it a tragedy. When Trump tried to mock Ms. Harris for the lack of detail in her agenda, Ms. Harris bored into Mr. Trump's agenda rather than her own. When asked by the moderators to explain a list of her policy reversals, including her early support for banning fracking and decriminalizing border crossings, Ms. Harris addressed only the first one after promising to discuss all of them. I will not ban fracking, she said, and before turning quickly to Mr. Trump's upbringing as the son of a real estate developer. Another topic was Trump miss Biden. Trump was unsuccessful to tie Harris to Biden's policies. He failed to do so for most of the night. Instead, he mocked a man he seemed to miss running against. Ms. Harris pressed for her rival on his fixation. It's important to remind the former president, she said, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. Now, I want to end this podcast by this. From prosecutor to president, ? Harris outclasses Trump in a night to remember. The first debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will undoubtedly be remembered as a pivotal moment in the 2024 presidential race. From the very beginning, Harris exhibited a level of poise and confidence and control that left Donald Trump scrambling. What we saw wasn't just a clash of political ideology, but a clear contrast between competence and chaos. Harris maintained her composure and steered the conversation while Trump was visibly defensive, leaning on tired rhetoric rather than offering a fresh vision for the future. Trump's attempt to belittle and discredit Harris fell flat, especially in the face of her deft navigation of issues like abortion, democracy, and international relations. Her ability to turn Trump's attacks against him and maintain a laser focus on the needs of the American people proved that she's not just a candidate, she's a leader. Harris's performance wasn't just a win on the debate stage. It was a signal to voters that America can move forward, leaving behind the divisive and regressive tactics that have defined Trump's political career. One thing is clear, to me at least, and I hope it's clear to you. Kamala Harris is ready to lead, and Donald Trump is running out of places to hide. You now have lots of information to talk with friends, family, and acquaintances about the needs to go vote in November. And the only choice they have is Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. They will bring us into a powerful and dynamic future for our nation. Thank you for listening.